Welcome to my video blog. In the last video blog, we opened up this can of worms, as I'd like to call it, and this notion of the knowing-doing gap. Why is it that we as individuals and as organizations again and again experience that we know what to do, but we don't actually do it? What does it take to move the knowing into doing? What does it take to convert knowledge into implementable skills? So I opened up that discussion in the previous video blog, but we didn't touch on what is probably the biggest challenge of them all, the hardest part to deal with. And the hardest part to deal with for most of us is that it's all about our mindset. But before I explore that, I'd really like you to take a quick little test, a few little questions that you need to answer to explore your own mindset. Because if you take the test once I've presented what I'm going to present, you're going to get influenced by it. So do yourself a favor, put the video on pause and take the test. Go on, put it on pause, do it now. I hope you've done it now. If you have, follow along as we go. So when we talk about mindset, a simple way to look at it is to think, see, be, do. In the sense that how I see a situation, what I believe about a situation will influence my state of mind, my being. And whatever state of mind I have will influence what I decide to do or not do. If I see something and I think that it's dangerous or difficult or whatever it is, then I'm going to be in one state of mind and that's going to make me do one thing. If I see something as fun or easy or interesting, or whatever it is, then it's going to be a different trajectory. The action is going to be different, obviously. And this is really important to understand because there's a much bigger perspective in this, which we can get back to in later videos, because this applies to so many other things in our lives as well. But when we look at this notion of learning and closing the knowing-doing gap, then it is very clear that there are two different kinds of belief, two different ways of seeing the world. And this lady called Carol Dweck, who is an author and has written extensively and researched extensively of this, she defines this as two kinds of mindset. You can have a fixed mindset or you can have a growth mindset. So these are two very different core beliefs on learning and development. In the one, a fixed trace, we believe that success is about proving how smart or talented that we are, validating ourselves. We're born with a certain set of skills or talents that we develop or whatever it is, and there are other things that we'll never learn, we'll never get good at, and so we shouldn't do anything about those. Then there's another way of looking at the world, which says that everything is basically fluctual, everything can change, and it's all about stretching yourself and challenging yourself, because if you work hard enough on something, you can learn. And so these two very different ways of looking at the world take us on two very different paths. If I believe that I have the talents that I have, then my focus on a day-to-day basis becomes very much about looking good, showing people these are my talents, and then doing my best to try and avoid people seeing what I'm not so good at. And CB-do, this influences my behavior. So when it comes to effort, then I don't put in an effort, because effort is something people put in when they're not good at something. And so I don't need to put in an effort because I'm good at the things that I work with, and the rest I don't touch. Challenges, if I have a serious challenge, I try and avoid it. I bypass it, I give up, or give it to somebody else because it's not in my belief that I can do anything about it. Feedback, I tend to take as personal criticism, and I get really defensive because I don't really accept it. And so it doesn't really help me much. It doesn't make me grow because I still believe that I have the talents that I have, you just don't seeing them. And finally, mistakes, I really hate them. And my day-to-day life is very much about avoiding to make mistakes. Now, on the other hand, if you have a completely different set of beliefs, if you see the world in a different way and see talent and something that can be developed with some effort and that you can always get better, then it means that your focus shifts to this is all about getting better and focusing on the process much more than on the end result. The end result may not look so beautiful at the moment, but it's because I'm improving, I'm getting better, and eventually it'll get great. So my attitude towards effort is it's a really, really important part of learning. Challenges are something I need to work through. They're here to challenge me and to help me get better. Feedback is all important. I need it. The more I can get, the better. Please help me. Tell me more. And mistakes are learning opportunities. But this boils down to fundamentally how you have chosen to see the world. And first of all, this applies to yourself, but obviously this also applies to the people that work for you. What are their beliefs? We'll get more into that shortly. So come on, did you take the test? Well, if not, do it after this video, but try and be honest with yourself when you do the questions and don't let yourself be influenced by what you just saw. Now, it's important then in that context to also remember that the beliefs that we have may depend a little bit on the situation. So I noticed in myself that in certain areas, I believe that I can grow, that I can learn, that it's all about getting better and the effort. But in some areas, say music or yoga, I've had very much a fixed set of belief. I'm not flexible, I can't do yoga. Or I'm not musical, I'll never learn music. Or mathematics. Mathematics, I don't have a brain for mathematics, I don't do mathematics. But then in other contexts, I have a completely different approach. And it wasn't until I actually got knowledge of this way of thinking that I started challenging myself. So today I actually do quite a bit of yoga because I overcame my own beliefs that I couldn't do yoga, and I'm really glad that I did. And so I haven't tackled mathematics yet. I'm not quite sure if I've changed my belief around that, but that's a different story. But it's very clear that the belief that I have around certain areas determines how I approach them. So the key then is, if you want to bridge the knowing-doing gap in some areas, you may want to change your beliefs. And I'll do another video about how we can work with our beliefs, because they can be quite hard to change and they're deeply ingrained in us, but I'll get back to that. And the other thing that I'm going to get back to in a future video is that one thing is that maybe you have a growth mindset, but what about your organization? Does your organization reinforce a growth mindset? What is your organization's attitude to mistakes, effort, feedback, all of these things? What's your attitude towards the people that work for you? Are you promoting a growth mindset in them, or do you see them as people with fixed talents or not? Think about all that, and we'll work a bit more on it in future videos as we unwrap this, in my point of view, super exciting subject. See you next week.